The neighbors on Cerro de Vigil Street heard the sounds before they understood them. They heard them, and they did not go to the door. By morning, when a woman arrived as promised at the house of her friend, the street already knew that something had occurred within those walls that no record could fully contain. The official account begins on the 24th of April, 1989. What the official account cannot begin is the grief. Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. Now, let's begin. Querétaro, in the central highlands of Mexico, is a city of considerable historical distinction. Its colonial center, designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in later decades, encompasses arcaded plazas, Baroque churches, and the celebrated aqueduct of 74 arches, constructed in the early 1700s, its stone columns rising above the streets with an unhurried permanence that the city itself has long embodied. By the late 1980s, Querétaro had become one of the fastest-growing urban centers in the country. Families relocated there from the capital, drawn by its lower crime rate, its growing industrial base, and the quality of its civic life. It was regarded, by those who lived there and those who chose to move there, as a safe and orderly city. On the morning of the 24th of April, 1989, officers of the Querétaro Constabulary were called to a residential address in the Haciendas neighborhood. The report filed upon their arrival described the interior of the house in terms that those who prepared it chose carefully. It was a document written by people trained to record what they found without embellishment. Even so, the record is not easy to read. What this account presents is the official reconstruction of events, the psychiatric evaluations, the legal proceedings, the documented history of a woman and a family, alongside, and only alongside, what the record itself preserved. Where the record is silent, this account is silent also. It was established, in the course of the subsequent psychiatric and legal proceedings, that Claudia Mijangos Arzaga had been born on the 25th of May, 1956, in the port city of Mazatlan, in the state of Sinaloa, on Mexico's Pacific coast. She was the youngest of 7 children, 4 girls and 3 boys, born to Antonio Mijangos and Maria del Carmen Arzaga. Witnesses who provided testimony regarding her childhood and family background described her parents in terms that the official record preserved with some care. Her mother was characterized as a dominant and deeply religious woman, exacting in her expectations of those within the household. Her father was described as a man of sensitive temperament, and, in the assessment of those who recalled him, one who did not challenge his wife's authority within the home. The precise psychological atmosphere of that household was a matter that the later psychiatric evaluation would consider in some detail. It was confirmed that during her school years, Claudia Mijangos was regarded by those who knew her as a sociable and popular young person, though not notably academic in her inclinations. She pursued a qualification in commerce. It was reported, though this could not be confirmed in official sources, that as a young woman she had won a local beauty contest in Mazatlan. Her parents died while she was still relatively young, the precise dates of which are not recorded in the available documentation. At the age of 19, she met Alfredo Castaños Gutiérrez, an employee of a banking institution and 8 years her senior. 2 years later, they married and relocated to Querétaro, where Alfredo had secured employment. The couple established a household in the Haciendas neighborhood. 3 children were born of the marriage: Claudia María, the eldest, Ana Belén, the middle child, and Alfredo Antonio, the youngest, who was 6 years of age at the time of the events of April 1989. Claudia Mijangos obtained employment as a teacher of catechism, ethics, and religious instruction at the Fray Luis de León school, the same institution attended by her 3 children. Those who worked alongside her in that capacity described her as a committed teacher. The records of her employment raised no concerns during the period of her service. It was subsequently established that in the late 1980s, the marriage between Claudia and Alfredo Castaños had encountered serious difficulties. It was subsequently determined, through the combined assessment of the psychiatric evaluation and the statements of those who had been in contact with Claudia Mijangos in the months preceding the events of April 1989, that a pattern of psychological deterioration had been observable over an extended period. In the late 1980s, the couple attended marriage counseling in an attempt to address the difficulties within their relationship. It was established that this intervention did not succeed in resolving those difficulties. Clinical assessment undertaken after the events confirmed that during this period, Claudia Mijangos had begun to experience hallucinations, perceiving figures characterized in her account as demonic and angelic, and had developed a fixation upon a priest named Father Ramon, who was also employed at the Fray Luis de Leon school. The nature and extent of any relationship with this individual was a matter that the official proceedings examined. The couple subsequently separated. It was further established that in the early months of 1989, Claudia Mijangos began experiencing what was later clinically characterized as psychotic episodes, periods in which she perceived voices that she could not determine to be internally or externally generated. She did not disclose these experiences to her former husband, having reportedly feared that such a disclosure would be received as confirmation of views he had already expressed regarding her mental state. On the evening of the 23rd of April, 1989, Alfredo Castaños collected the 3 children from school and returned them to the family home. A dispute occurred between the former spouses, the subject of which was reported to be a rumor regarding Claudia's relationship with Father Ramon. The dispute concluded with Alfredo Castaños departing the premises. The children were subsequently put to bed. In the early hours of the 24th of April, 1989, at approximately 5 o'clock in the morning, Claudia Mijangos woke from sleep. She later stated to investigators that she had been woken by voices informing her, among other things, that her hometown of Mazatlan had ceased to exist. She attempted to determine whether the voices were real. She subsequently telephoned a friend, Verónica Vásquez, and communicated her distress. Verónica Vásquez advised her to return to sleep and promised to visit in the morning. Claudia Mijangos did not return to sleep. The formal report of discovery was prepared by officers of the Querétaro Constabulary following their attendance at the residential address on Cerro de Vigil Street in the Haciendas neighborhood on the morning of the 24th of April, 1989. The attending officers were summoned following a call placed by Verónica Vásquez, who had arrived at the address as promised that morning. She had knocked at the door. The door had been opened by Claudia Mijangos, whose clothing was stained with blood. Believing initially that her friend had been the victim of an attack, Verónica Vásquez had entered the premises. She proceeded to the upper floor. Upon discovering the condition of the bedroom, she immediately departed the building and contacted the emergency services. The officers who attended documented the interior of the house in their formal report. The ground floor and the staircase leading to the upper story bore extensive blood staining. The upstairs corridor, the main bedroom, and the adjacent children's bedrooms showed evidence consistent with a serious and sustained violent incident. In the main bedroom, 3 children were found. They had been placed together on the large bed and covered with a duvet. They were Claudia María, aged 11 years, Ana Belén, aged 9 years, and Alfredo Antonio, aged 6 years. All 3 were deceased. A medical examination confirmed death in each instance. 3 knives were recovered from the premises and catalogued as follows: 1 instrument of 41 centimeters in length with a brown wooden handle, recovered from an armchair in the corner of the master bedroom. 1 instrument of 33 centimeters with a brown wooden handle, recovered from the same location. 1 instrument of 31 centimeters, recovered from the bedroom used by the 2 girls, bearing extensive blood staining. Claudia Mijangos was found in the main bedroom beside the children. Officers reported that she appeared to be without signs of life. Commander Adolfo Duran examined her and detected a pulse. The Red Cross was summoned. She was transferred to the Social Security Hospital in Querétaro. She was found to have sustained self-inflicted wounds to the wrists and chest, none of which proved fatal. The house on Cerro de Vigil Street was secured. The investigation commenced. The post-mortem examinations of the 3 children were conducted by the relevant medical authorities in Querétaro, and their findings presented in the course of the legal proceedings that followed. The examinations established the cause of death in each instance, and provided the evidentiary basis upon which the subsequent psychiatric and legal determinations were made. The external examination of Alfredo Antonio, aged 6 years, confirmed multiple lacerations to the left hand, consistent with the application of a bladed instrument with significant force. The injuries to the left hand were of a severity resulting in partial amputation. Additional lacerations to the torso were documented. The internal examination established that the wounds to the torso were the proximate cause of death. He was the first of the 3 children to die. The external examination of Claudia María, aged 11 years, documented 6 penetrating wounds consistent with a bladed instrument. The internal examination identified injury to the pulmonary system, specifically a wound that had penetrated the lung, as the cause of death. Post-mortem evidence indicated that she had moved from the location of the initial assault before death occurred. The external examination of Belén, aged 9 years, documented a single penetrating wound to the thoracic region. The internal examination confirmed that this wound had penetrated the heart. Death was determined to have been rapid. The forensic examination of Claudia Mijangos, conducted during her hospitalization, documented self-inflicted wounds to the wrists and chest. These wounds, while serious, did not constitute a threat to life requiring surgical intervention beyond the immediate medical treatment administered. She was assessed as physically stable. The 3 knives recovered from the premises were examined. 2 of the 3 instruments showed evidence of having been cleaned. The 3rd retained blood staining consistent with the wounds documented in the post-mortem examinations. The forensic and medical record, taken in its entirety, established that the deaths of all 3 children had been caused by injuries inflicted with the knives recovered from the premises, and that no other person had been present in the house at the time those injuries were sustained. If you are finding this case as compelling as we are, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. It truly helps us continue researching and sharing these forgotten stories from history. We also read every comment, so let us know your thoughts on this case below. Now, let's continue. Claudia Mijangos was formally questioned by an agent of the Office of the Public Prosecutor of Querétaro upon her recovery in hospital. Her first statement, taken on the 27th of April, 1989, 3 days after the events, attributed her actions to external mental pressure, referencing the priest, Father Ramon, and her former husband. A subsequent statement contradicted the first, claiming she had no recollection of the events. She spoke of her children in the present tense. She was formally charged and remanded to custody within the hospital, under sedation and under guard. The legal proceedings that followed the events of April 1989 in Querétaro were not, in their final form, an ordinary criminal trial. The determination of how to proceed was made only after the completion of an extensive psychiatric and neurological evaluation of Claudia Mijangos, commissioned by the Mexican judicial authorities and conducted by the relevant medical specialists. The diagnostic conclusions of that evaluation were formally recorded as follows. Claudia Mijangos was found to be suffering from schizoaffective disorder, a condition characterized clinically by abnormal thought processes, deregulated emotional responses, and the experience of psychotic episodes, including auditory hallucinations. She was additionally diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy, a chronic neurological condition characterized by recurrent focal seizures originating in the temporal lobe, typically of short duration, and capable of producing altered states of perception and consciousness. The combined effect of these 2 conditions upon her mental state at the time of the events of April 1989 was examined in the evaluation in detail. The formal psychiatric report, a document described in proceedings as a psychiatric, mental, medical, and physical evaluation, was submitted to the legal teams representing both the prosecution and the defense. Upon its acceptance, the ordinary procedures of criminal prosecution were suspended. The legal teams agreed, in light of the medical findings, that standard criminal proceedings were not the appropriate mechanism for resolving the case. The outcome of the legal process was a determination that Claudia Mijangos should be sentenced to 30 years of confinement in a secure psychiatric institution, to be served not within the ordinary prison system, but within a facility equipped to provide the psychiatric care her diagnosis required. The presiding legal authorities accepted this determination. The proceedings were formally concluded. On the 19th of September, 1991, 2 years and 5 months after the events of April 1989, Claudia Mijangos was incarcerated in the psychiatric annex of the Centro de Readaptación Social Femenil, a maximum security institution situated approximately 16 miles from the city of Tula, in the state of Hidalgo. The legal record was closed. 3 children, Claudia María, aged 11 years, Ana Belén, aged 9 years, Alfredo Antonio, aged 6 years, were recorded as deceased. That entry in the official record does not change. What the official record contains after the verdict is this: a name, an institution, a date of incarceration, and a sentence of 30 years. What the official record does not contain is the particular quality of silence that settled over the house on Cerro de Vigil Street in the Haciendas neighborhood of Querétaro after the morning of the 24th of April, 1989. No family moved into the house. The property was sold, reportedly on several occasions, but no occupant took residence. Over the years that followed, the structure fell into disrepair and was subjected to vandalism. The neighborhood submitted formal complaints to the municipal authorities, requesting that the building be secured behind a barbed wire enclosure to prevent unauthorized access. The authorities complied. The newspapers of Querétaro, in the days immediately following the discovery, gave the case their full attention. They referred to Claudia Mijangos by a designation, La Hiena de Querétaro, the hyena of Querétaro, that reduced a woman of complex and documented psychiatric history to a single, categorical noun. The press coverage, extensive and pointed in its judgments, reflected a public response that was one of horror and of sustained incomprehension. The city that had been regarded as one of the safest in Mexico found itself at the center of a story that no civic reputation could absorb without difficulty. Alfredo Castaños Gutiérrez, the father of the 3 children, lost all 3 of his children on the morning of the 24th of April, 1989. The record does not follow him with any detail beyond this point. What such a loss constitutes, in the daily life of a man, in the years of a lifetime, no document has measured or could measure. The house on Cerro de Vigil Street became, over the years that followed, what the sources describe as a site of morbid curiosity for residents and visitors alike. Reports of unusual occurrences within the empty building accumulated in the accounts of those who entered it without authorization. Investigators associated with the study of paranormal phenomena claimed to have documented anomalous activity within its walls. Whether such accounts are to be given any credence is a matter outside the scope of any official record. What they indicate, if nothing else, is that the city of Querétaro did not put the case aside. It continued to visit the house. It continued to look through the windows at what was no longer there. Claudia Mijangos was due for release in June of 2019, upon completion of her 30-year sentence. Whether that release proceeded as scheduled, and under what conditions she re-entered the society that had named her and not forgotten her, the documentation available at the time of this account does not fully confirm. The house on Cerro de Vigil Street remains uninhabited. Claudia María was 11 years old. Ana Belén was 9. Alfredo Antonio was 6. They were children who attended school, who slept in their beds, who had names given to them by parents who had, at some point before everything changed, imagined for them a future. The official record preserved their names in the context of their deaths. It is the only place this account can return them to life, briefly, incompletely, and with the acknowledgement that no document, however carefully maintained,